my name is Anna. You may know me from Power Rangers, Spartacus, Cabin in the Woods, anger management, depends what you're into. And you are listening to Kneel Before Pod.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello and welcome to another explosive episode of Kneel Before Pod, the podcast that had some friends a long time ago. I'm your host Craig and I'm very excited to bring all you marshmallows out there a discussion of the new series of The Little Show That Could, Veronica Mars. Joining me for this discussion, we've got a fellow marshmallow in the room. Laura, you've come back.
I have come back. Thanks for having me again.
Well, I'm just glad you decided to give this another go after the last one.
First one wasn't too traumatic, so I thought I'd come again.
That's it. It's not as bad as it seems.
Nah. Bar was low, but it's alright.
I'm not sure how to take that. We're here to discuss Veronica Mars, as the intro states. So, first of all, we will go off topic and delve into Kneel Befores and Rises Against. You know, we're going to love and hate something in the world of entertainment. So, would you like to kick us off with Kneel Before?
Yeah, so after a long time of not having seen it, I started rewatching Elementary. You know, the American version of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And I think last time I saw it, it was only 2 seasons in, so it must have been around 2014. So basically I was going in fresh because I'd completely forgotten it. And it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend.
I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes and I wasn't super into it.
Really?
Yeah.
I just really like what they did with having Joan Watson, Lucy Liu, be a woman. Thought that really made the chemistry really interesting between them.
Yeah, I think they got the characterization of Sherlock. I mean, it's different to the Benedict Cumberbatch version, which is another modern Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Although he's a more traditional modern Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas this version's a bit more, I guess, sociopathic.
It's edgy.
Yeah. I watched 4 episodes. I wasn't super into it. Not enough to keep going, but...
Okay, fair enough.
If you're enjoying it, amazing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of episodes to go through, nearing 150, I think. So I'm going to be at it for a while.
You still have to get to the difficult later seasons where everyone's questioning why it's still on and why they're still watching it.
Probably, yeah.
Fair play. So that's something. Yeah, I might go back to it one of these days. Maybe have it down the list somewhere. Way far down the list.
Yeah, there's not a lot of time to be watching, shows you only feel half-assed about.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with everything that's coming out.
Aye.
Cool. I'm going to kneel before the latest trailer for Rambo Last Blood.
I don't think I've seen it.
I love the Rambo movies. Mm-hmm. Even the third one, which is kind of maligned, but I think it has its place in cinema history. I thought the fourth one is actually my favourite of the Rambo movies. The last one, which was just called Rambo, because it's really confusing for everyone. If you're trying to watch them, it's which order do I watch this? So you've got 1, 2, and 3, fine. Then Rambo, and then Rambo Last Blood.
Fair enough. Didn't even realise that there were already 4.
Yeah, I'd recommend checking out the 4th one if you haven't seen it.
No, I haven't. I thought it stopped at 3, but clearly I was wrong.
Yeah, it came out around about the same time as Rocky Balboa.
Oh, right, yeah. So that might be why I missed it.
Yeah, Stallone doing his kind of victory tour of his franchises and somehow still promising that they're going to be over and then still bringing them back. So I think this is his last as Rambo until we get Rambo New Blood.
Okay, fair.
That's not a thing that's happening, I just made that up.
I mean, it probably will happen, let's be honest.
Well, they can't use Son of Rambo because that was a comedy film.
Maybe it'll be Cousin.
Cousin of Rambo. I think New Blood would be a thing.
Yeah.
So the trailer looks good. It looks like a pretty brutal balls to the wall action film.
I could get behind that.
Knows what he's doing with these sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm pretty amped for it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll put the trailer in the show notes and you can watch it. So, what would you like to rise against?
Okay. I think this is going to come as no surprise to anyone ever, but I'm going to rise against the whole Sony Disney Spider-Man storm. It's just made me very upset, and I'm very bitter.
Yeah, we're doing our second Endgame podcast tomorrow as of recording of this one, so who knows what that'll mean for listeners. But
yeah, gosh.
And I suspect there'll be a discussion about this in a lot of detail at that point.
There's going to be loads to talk about. That's going to be a long podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours. But suffice to say, I'm on the same page as you. I think it's a really bad thing. I mean, it seems over as of yesterday, which was Sunday the 27th.
Yeah.
As in, they made a statement saying Spider-Man will not return to the MCU.
Yeah.
Which,
for some reason, people on Twitter are still like, no, but it's not like definitive. I'm like, it sounds pretty certain to me.
Well, if Kevin Feige and Tom Holland are sitting down at a Disney event saying, yeah, it's over, it seems like it's pretty much
I know,
over.
right?
Yeah. I don't know, I think there's still hope. I think they could still negotiate something.
Maybe.
I mean, the thing of it is, Disney don't need Spider-Man to make the MCU work. You know, they've proven that time and time again, and I think the momentum of the thing is so unstoppable that not having Spider-Man won't slow them down a little bit. I mean, it's possible that it will be a bit of a blip for them because they can't count on the Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans of the world to kind of shepherd the brand from here.
Yeah.
But you've still got Black Panther, you've still got Doctor Strange. They'll be fine. I think Sony are the ones that need them more than Disney needs Spider-Man. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that front.
I mean, I think Disney got a bit too greedy. I think that's part of the problem here, and Sony just took their intellectual property and walked away. So, I don't know, I'm not a financial analyst.
I like it, it's a bit shit, but at the same time, like, I kind of respect Sony, not exactly for how it turned out, but for, like, taking a stand against Disney, literally owning everything, because it is a trend that's starting to be a bit concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as bothered about that as other people are, because I think they've proven themselves able to keep things that work continuing to work. Like, Marvel Studios is still run by Kevin Feige because he's making the money, so there's no reason to involve themselves. They got involved with Star Wars because it wasn't working and forced some change there, but things like Pixar and stuff are just left to do their own thing.
Yeah.
And I suspect some of the Fox stuff that is working, maybe the Searchlight stuff, will continue as it is because it works.
Yeah, probably need to give it like another year or so before we start seeing the effects of the Fox acquisition, because right now what's coming out is like projects that were already in development before it was bought up. Yeah,
once the dust settles, you'll start to see how they're really running things and whether it's an improvement or not. It might end up being a better thing for all concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's how it turns out, but yeah, just wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a longer discussion to be had about Spider-Man. Everything we say might be inaccurate as of the time you listen to this, because the story is changing every couple hours when I was trying to follow it, so I don't know what to believe.
That'll be more of a problem for tomorrow's podcast.
Yeah, but Tom Holland, poor guy, seems that his career is not going as well as it should be at this point, because the Uncharted movie that he's in lost a director. There's a film he's in with Daisy Ridley that's considered unreleasable, so there's... He did have such a promising career, and
yeah, I mean, he still might, once he grows out of the sort of boyish stage of his, I don't know, looks even, or what he can act. Yeah,
when he's like 45 and still looks like a 17-year-old.
Probably, to be honest.
Still getting ID'd at the supermarket. Just we should all be so lucky. So yeah, that's a bit of a tease for a longer discussion. So yeah. I'm going to rise against an announcement that came out the same day. There's going to be a new Matrix film. And I don't want a new Matrix film.
I swear that just got lost. Like, that day was such a hellish day for film news. It just got lost in the whole, like, storm of it. But yeah, no, the Matrix film's not a great idea in my books.
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers were like, oh, we'll release this, everyone will be really excited about it. And then what happens in this, like, an hour later or an hour before or something.
And the James Bond thing, the same day as well, like within 2 hours.
Yeah. Not a huge fan of the title, but never mind.
No, that's another discussion.
Yeah. But yeah, another Matrix film. I mean, they made one and it was fine, and then they didn't make any more, and I was happy with that. So I don't know why they're calling it the fourth Matrix film, because I don't know where the other two are.
Oh, yeah, no, there's three.
I know, I just ignore them.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, Craig, we need to have a conversation there.
Yeah, as if I could have missed two Matrix films. No,
I mean, I wish I had missed them, to be honest with you.
I don't acknowledge their existence. I actually own the trilogy in a box set because it was cheaper than just buying the first one. You know, I might
bizarre.
as well use Reloaded and Revolutions as posters. They're never going to get watched.
Oh, it was so bad. I had someone, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I had someone say that they were really good the other day, and I just had to tune out.
I mean, to be fair, I saw Reloaded when it came out at the cinema, like way back, and I was at high school at the time, and I watched it, and I was actually really entertained by it. I thought the action was really cool, all the kind of kung fu stuff. And if that's what, I don't know, maybe 13-year-old me was looking for at that time, and I guess it wasn't until I sat and thought about it I realised, hang on, nobody knows what's going on here. No one likes this. What is going on? The first one is a perfect sort of standalone concept.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's one of those, no one has any idea what to do with that or how to end it. So it just ends in a really simplistic way. But it seems over, like it's pretty definitively over. So how do we get a fourth one? And how is Keanu Reeves back?
Yeah, everyone's back. Like, I don't quite know how they're going to set that up.
I mean, if it's a computer simulation, right, you can just simulate anybody, so it's fine. But at the same time, don't want to see it.
No.
Unfortunately, I will see it when it comes out. But
well, yeah, because, you know, it's your job.
Yeah, but I don't want to see it. So there we go. New Matrix films. Does anybody want it? Is anybody excited? Don't know.
No one here, anyway.
Yeah, no one I know is excited. Which is, as we all know, the definitive stance on entertainment. Just people that I know.
Yes. We have veto power.
Yeah, that's it. Not veto power that prevents things from getting made, but, you know, some power. So there we go. That's a brief taste of what we hate and like in Hollywood, I guess. So, onto our featured topic. Finally, I get to talk about Veronica Mars after God knows how long. How many years it's been since I started watching Veronica Mars when it first came out. And we got a new series, which is really exciting. And I don't know if we're going to get another new series, which pretty much mirrors my reaction to the end of any other series. Like, yeah, that was good. Is there going to be another one? I don't know.
Hopefully. Well, fingers crossed.
After 2, I knew there would be a 3. So
yeah.
Yeah. And then after I'd seen 1, I knew there was already a 2 because I kind of got into it a little bit late. But,
fair enough.
Yeah. So I've never really had that, but it seemed like a good soundbite. So, what's your kind of connection to the show? It's a good way to start on it because we've never talked about it before. So,
yeah, I started watching it when I was like 15 or so. So I don't know what year that was. But
probably best not to divulge what year that was. Just
true.
Keep that air of mystery.
But I just remember like really, really enjoying it, and just she kind of reminded me of like a modern day Buffy, and Buffy was always one of my favorite shows as well when I was growing up. So it definitely had that appeal for me. And then in 2014 they released, I think it was 2014, they released the film, and I followed that sort of like crowdfunding very closely, and so that was really, really exciting. So yeah, I guess I've been with it for quite a while now. It's crazy to think that was already 5 years ago. Yeah.
Did you donate to the crowdfunding for the film?
I didn't, no, because I didn't have any money, which is a recurring theme.
It's always a recurring theme for me too, but I would have donated if I'd heard about it in good time. By the time I heard that it existed, it had already hit its goal and they'd like closed it.
Yeah, they did it really fast, to be fair. Like, I remember that the crowdfunding started, I can't remember the specifics, but they reached their goal very, very quickly and people were still trying to donate.
Yeah, it was within like a couple hours. And nobody could believe it, least of all the people that set up the crowdfunding campaign. So it was like, yeah, now we're getting a film. I guess we better make it. I think it was like Warner Brothers put up half the money for it. Once they crowdfunded enough, so...
I didn't know that, but fair enough.
Yeah, to like distribute it and stuff like that. So yeah, there you go. It was good.
And now Hulu picked it up, so...
Yeah.
Hopefully they... Yeah, well... I wonder when we'll hear in terms of like another series or lack thereof.
Well, Kristen Bell said it highly depends on gaps in the actors' schedules.
Oh, okay, fair.
You know, she's always doing stuff. So I guess they just have to find the time to make it, which could be a couple of years, could be a few months, who knows.
Well, I mean, if it happens, I'll be really happy.
Yeah, me too.
Even if I have to wait a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, you've waited so long.
True.
Yeah, my connection to the show, I started watching it. A friend put me onto it way back. I remember I'd never heard of it. And it was a friend that I worked with at the time told me bits and pieces about it while we were at work. And I was like, it sounds pretty cool. I'd like to see it. And it turns out it wasn't available in this country, the UK, at all. So what had happened was my mate had got the American DVDs, and you could get them quite easily, actually. If you went into sort of second-hand DVD shops and things like that, they would tend to have them. I don't know how, but the American DVDs were in decent circulation. And so he lent me that, so I watched the first season. And then the second season I was able to get my hands on another way that I won't divulge on the recorded platform. But the first season I fell in love with it immediately. I thought it was really good. Strangely, it reminded me, you mentioned Buffy, and I can see that connection. It's like the high school. I mean, there's no real supernatural element in there, but other than that, there are similarities. But I thought it was more similar to a character that was in Smallville called Chloe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She was along those lines, and it's almost it's almost like it's her, but without Superman kicking about and solving mysteries. So I drew that connection because I loved Smallville, and there was kind of sassy, blonde, high-functioning genius.
Really short ones.
Yeah. Yeah, so I loved it. And the funniest thing about the Region 1 DVDs is I think maybe they knew that there was going to be this appeal, this underground appeal, so they weren't actually region locked. So they just worked anywhere, any DVD player you put them in, where they weren't supposed to. So I wonder if there was some kind of intervention. It's like, let's get this out there internationally. I'd like to think there was. It would suit this kind of scrappiness of the show if they did.
I do that, yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So then I was watching the third season week on week when it was on the CW that would ultimately lead to its cancellation. I heard about the movie, I was like ecstatic, and I loved the film as well. And now a new series. Yay.
Can't believe it, to be quite honest with you. Didn't happen like within the 2 years after the movie release. I was like, oh well, then that's that. And then it did happen eventually. Yeah,
the little show that could.
Yeah. Well, I do like what you said about it being a little scrappy show, because it really is that.
Yeah. So what did you think of this season? Without spoilers, just, what was your general opinion of it?
Overall, I very, very much liked it, and I thought it was the perfect installment in terms of Veronica Mars and Neptune, like X years down the line. I thought it was very well developed, and it accounted for the time gap very well. All the characters had grown up in a way that made sense, so that didn't feel lazy. And I just thought it was a really great short, it's only 8 episodes, it was like short, compact, efficient series, and a great installment that works in the Veronica Mars universe.
Yeah, I'd agree. I loved it. I think it's changed as a show, which all good shows should change to some degree.
Yeah.
And especially the fact is the show's been segmented. It's had so many gaps building up to the sort of present day. So it's not that we've had like 10 years or 15 years of watching the characters incrementally develop. So we kind of leave them for a bit and then we come back and see where they're at that point in their lives. So you have to kind of hit the ground running with who they are at that point. And I think it does that. And a big theme in the series is the Veronica Mars in her 30s versus the Veronica Mars in her teens. What are the major differences in our life at this point? And we'll definitely get into in the spoiler-filled section, but I think they do some really interesting things with it, and they do some things I didn't actually expect to happen with it as well. And it's obviously great to revisit Neptune and all those characters. The Veronica Keith dynamic is still as amazing as it ever was.
My favourite relationship on that whole show.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best father-daughter relationship on television as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree.
He's one of the best TV parents. And her other relationships as well. I mean, this series, it doesn't have Mac in it, so there's a few friendships that are missing, and some of the other stuff is pushed to the background. You hardly see Wallace, for example. He's not about that much. And I think it's kind of about that. It's about maybe as people grow older, they drift apart a bit, or the nature of their friendships change. I think you get a lot of these TV shows where they subsist for a long period of time, and you have this friendship that's basically the same as it was in the first episode, despite the fact they've been through high school, they've been through college, they're supposed to have jobs, they're supposed to be doing different stuff with their lives, and it's the nature of how relationships change, and I think it's one of the most realistic versions of that. I don't think you get that very often on television because people tune in to see, Ross and Rachel having their on-off relationship or whatever, whatever your core relationship is. People don't really want to see that change too much, or at least the perception is that people don't want to see it change too much. Yeah. But I like that things do change because, I've had various relationships in my life that have changed completely over the past. Ever since I started watching Veronica Mars, actually, if I look at the friendships that I had back then that I still have today, they're not the same. So it's good that something addresses that.
For sure. But they still keep that sort of central element of Veronica and Keith, and that way the show stays grounded on that aspect, and it allows for the other relationships to evolve or drift as they would in real life.
Yeah, and even her relationship with Keith changes as well.
Yeah, and so it should. She's not a little kid anymore.
Yeah. So on that, I think we should dive straight into spoilers because we're getting close to just breaking it. Yeah.
A pony?
Okay, so the first note I got on the kind of agenda is a new direction for the show, and we've touched on this. It's how it's grown up and it's reflected in the characters that exist within the show. So you've got Veronica, who's in her 30s. She's still in Neptune. Or rather, she's come back to Neptune, because you see in the film, she was off to become an amazing human being who, had infinite potential, and now she's kind of stuck back in her hometown, which is kind of depressing.
Yeah.
As somewhere for her to end up, because she was capable of so much more. We saw everything that she was capable of, or teases of everything she was capable of, and then she ends up back where she started because she can't shake this codependent relationship she has with the town that she comes from, despite how much she hates it. And I think a major part of this season is exploring, is that a good thing? Is she in the best place in her life? Should she be here? And I'm forced to lean on the side of the answer being no.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think with the ending and her leaving Neptune, there's a hint at a new beginning that sort of addresses the ongoing commentary in this season of her being stuck, her being sort of emotionally stunted in some respects, and her needing Neptune even though she doesn't want to need it. And I think that comes across in various relationships she has, especially the one with Logan. I think that comes up quite a lot. And I like also the various allusions to her having gone to university and being in that Vanity Fair article and all of that, and then her returning to Neptune and to the Mars investigations and such.
Yeah, in the film they established that she left Hearst College and went to Stanford, which is kind of where she was talking about going in season 2. When it was building up to all that, but for whatever reason she decided to stay local. And the idea is that her life was a lot better when she did that. She was being courted by a top-end law firm in a really powerful position, things like that. And then she comes back to Neptune and stagnates for a bit. Because she decides that solving mysteries and trying to clean up the cesspit that is her hometown is almost her mission in life, even though it isn't, or even though it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be her problem. But it's one of those weird things. As soon as the protagonist is kicking about in their old hometown, that's when everything starts to fall apart. So in the film, it's when people start getting shot and murdered, and there's all this stuff going on. And there's bombings everywhere, and you have to wonder what would Neptune be like without the Mars family. How much of a terrible situation would it be in without them?
True.
I mean, it's bad as it is, but at the same time, they've probably managed to stop some other terrible things.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how useless the police department seems to be by contrast.
Yeah, I mean, they're not as useless as the old sheriff department under Sheriff Lamb, but
true.
I think it's more pride that the police chief is not as useful as she could be rather than being actually incompetent. She doesn't want the FBI to be involved because she wants to be the one to solve the case. Things like that. So I think there's a measure of vanity in there. It makes sense. But Veronica being in Neptune is definitely not very healthy for her.
No, not at all. And it kind of makes me think that it took like that traumatic event that we'll probably discuss towards the end of the podcast to sort of jolt her into realizing that as much as like her safety net might be in Neptune in terms of the people there, like for her own sort of well-being and growth, she needs to leave it.
Yeah, and Logan calls her on that at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He says to her something along the lines of, what would your life be like if you didn't have me or your dad? And she says, I'd have my head in an oven because the two most important people in my life are gone. And I suppose there's an element of truth to that. She feels very kind of stuck by those relationships. Not in a bad way, though.
No.
I mean, they are very positive relationships for her in some ways. I mean, the Logan thing is it's a bit strange, especially in her. It's very toxic in some ways, although it works, but it's toxic because you have that whole discussion of the Logan Eccles that you see in season 1 and 2, this kind of mentally damaged, violent, almost psychopath, and how he's mellowed in recent years, and he's served the country a bit. He's become all about fitness and well-being and everything else, and that kind of anger he has is still there, but it's buried, and Veronica kind of wants that out of him. Which is not good. It's that moment, where he punches his way through the wall and it forces you to do a double take and say, well, that's, we should probably look at that. We should probably think about that a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of reflects her own sort of resistance to evolving. The fact that she's still grabbing onto this old version of Logan who's no longer there because she's grabbing onto that era of her life where she didn't feel like she needed to be elsewhere. She wasn't questioning her life choices in the way she is now, I'm guessing.
Or it's almost like she's willfully not questioning her life choices. She's trying to confirm to herself that she's where she needs to be when she really isn't. And I just love how damaged Veronica is. I always have.
Oh, yeah. For sure. And I love how they've made that damage even more profound in this, because obviously she's been sitting on everything that's happened to her for 10 or so years. The gap that's between season 3 and 4. And you see that trauma that's developed and adapted and made her into that person. I think that's done and played very, very well.
Yeah, she's still the 15-year-old girl that was raped in a lot of ways, and she's never dealt with that. And they bring up therapy a lot this season as well.
Yeah.
She should be in therapy. She should have been in therapy. And never has been because she doesn't see the value in it. I guess until the final scene.
Yeah.
But even then, I wonder if she's only doing that out of some kind of obligation to Logan.
Even if it is what spurred her to go, I reckon it's going to be good for her if we get to see her again in later seasons or in another film. I think that's definitely going to play some great part in her development and how she deals with upcoming sort of challenges and traumas, because even if like the motivation was to go because Logan used to go, that's still good enough.
Yeah, it still gets her through the door.
Exactly.
Which is the important thing. But when you think about television shows, you think about everything that characters go through. Even on, Veronica Mars is sort of mundane in the sense that she lives in a normal town. There's murders every week and whatever else. But when someone like her goes through as much as that, you have to imagine that there's no way you can just keep living your life normally. We watch a bunch of TV shows where there's these horrendous sort of fantastical things happening every week. You look at The 100, for example. They've had to deal with like mass genocide and everything else, and you have to wonder what the psychological state of all these people is after that length of time. So by the time you get a few seasons in, it's like everyone here is utterly insane. They have to be. There's no way that they could function anymore. So I think the fact that they're letting us see what toll that takes on Veronica. She has that kind of sassy outer persona that everyone sees that kind of helps her defend from everything, but you get little glimpses of just how destructive everything in her life is.
Yeah, and I think that also serves to make the whole season feel a lot more grown up, because they're not shying away from that. And she's the same, like you said, the same sassy person, same sassy character that we all fell in love with in the early seasons, but there's a much darker, more traumatic side to her that we get glimpses of, and I think that serves to really mature season 4.
Yeah.
And the tone of the show overall.
Yeah. And I think the happy ending for Veronica Mars is what you see at the start of the film. You know, she has that job interview with a highly regarded law firm where they've headhunted her because she's brilliant. And then she takes that job and she has a stupidly successful life. That's the happy ending. But if you want to keep seeing a Veronica Mars TV show, you can't have that ending.
Nah.
Because she has to be the detective solving crimes and uncovering affairs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Unless they want to turn it into a legal drama, which, to be fair, I would watch.
Yeah, I'd watch it because she's in it, but I don't know if I'd love it as much. Yeah. Sorry, Veronica.
Who knows? Veronica Mars, you know, them as a lawyer.
Maybe she'd be like one of those rogue lawyers that sort of like takes the law in their own hands, and anyone who's acquitted, she goes and hunts them down or something.
Yeah,
vigilante
like,
style.
Yeah, or she's a bit like Daredevil without like the costume. She'll only take the cases of people that aren't guilty and all that kind of stuff.
That could actually be quite cute.
Yeah, she has a little scrappy law office.
Yeah.
People come in who are actually innocent and she defends them.
Mm.
And then you have the episode where she defends someone who's guilty and she was sure they were innocent and she doubts her judgment. Yeah, I mean, there we go. There's the first season right there.
We've basically done half the job for them. Now they just need to fund it.
Yeah, exactly. Just make that show now. Yeah, it's different. It's interesting to see how Neptune has changed as well. I mean, it's always been a varied place. It's one of the things I loved about the show way back. I think the way they characterise Neptune, you've got the rich and poor divide, which is very much the DNA of what it is. It's everything you need it to be, basically. Yeah. And this season focuses about more on the beachfront side of it, because it's focused on spring break, so you get more of that, so the motels and all the real estate goings on to try and make the beachfront a bit more of a lucrative location for developers. And that's behind the central mystery as well, which I think they wove in very nicely, the whole idea.
Oh yeah, it was so good, the way they did that. But I like it, you know, the way that Neptune seems to have evolved as well. Like at the start, it's that division between rich and poor. A lot of the mystery stems from gang violence and the tensions between various parts of the city, whereas now the tension is less geographic than it is about the gentrification of Neptune and how the rich are driving out the poorer elements of the city. So I think not only does that sort of evolve the dynamic of the show and the sort of background to Veronica's and all the characters' lives, but it also quite suits the political context that we're in at the moment. So I think it's grown up with the show really well as well.
Yeah. And having Big Dick back as essentially the main antagonist for quite a lot of it was an interesting choice. I mean, I always like a few callbacks to the days of old, but I really hate empty fan service. So I'm really glad that bringing him back wasn't just an empty thing. He was a central figure in the show.
For sure.
And I love that he hasn't changed. He's still an idiot. You know, in season 2, his scam was that he was pretending it was like a 5-star hotel when it was just a rundown slum motel. And it's pretty easy to figure it out. You just have to go to the address and then you'll realise that it's not what it's cracked up to be. And he's still an idiot here. I mean, he's functionally behind the first bombing, but he couldn't even do that right.
Yeah.
It was supposed to go off at night when no one was around, and it went off during the day because the Wi-Fi failed.
Yeah.
That was it. It was a subdued sort of reveal of the original bombing, and it was almost it's a part of the issue rather than being the issue itself.
Yeah. I really like that how sort of, not passively is not the word, but how casually that revelation was dropped that Big Dick was the cause of the first bomb. And I like that it wasn't this big climactic reveal.
And there's a bittersweet side to it as well, because he isn't really punished for it.
No.
It's, you know, it's the falling upward type situation, which is very obviously a commentary on how the rich in this world get away with everything.
Aye.
If you're rich enough, you're untouchable, and he's very much that. I mean, he's really stupid, but he has a lot of money, and that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, like, spoiler alert right now, but I didn't find his beheading all that satisfying because
I suppose he's punished in that sense, but
he's punished in that sense. But it was just a bit, I don't know. And this is not me sort of dissing the show at all. I think it's a really important part of the show to make that. The fact that he never actually comes to justice, I think, was a really awesome decision. But it just made me bitter. I was like, oh. Wish he'd just go back to jail and have people bully him for the rest of his life.
Yeah. But at the same time, he would go back to jail and the same thing would happen again.
Yeah.
He'd meet someone like Clyde who would help him.
Probably.
I guess that's how the rich work in this show. You know, people still don't believe that Aaron Eccles murdered Lily Kane. That's brought up this season a couple of times. Where
I thought that was really smart, the way they used the murder heads to sort of hark back to older mysteries of Neptune and sort of like pay homage to the earlier seasons. Thought that was clever.
I mean, we know he did it. Veronica knows he did it, but it's one of those things the public might not know about, because in season 2 you see him actually confess it to Veronica in the elevator.
Yeah.
He talks about, you know, the look on her face or something as he killed her. And yeah, he was just a horrible, horrible person. But the world at large doesn't know that. And I suppose there'll be people that are still fans of these movies that don't want to believe that their favourite movie star could be capable of such a thing.
And ain't that a commentary on modern society?
Yeah. So much commentary everywhere.
For real, though, I thought this was definitely the season that's been the most politically aware so far, in terms of not broader trends of wealth inequality and stuff that you see in the early seasons, but very immediate pinpointing of, you know, you get these white bombers, the gentrification aspect, the fake news almost of like what will the public believe versus what's real and how that's manipulated, and the idea that the bad guys, the bad wealthy guys, often get away with it and have a happy ending at the expense of others. Thought that was all very sort of politically and socially immediate.
Yeah, I mean, they've always been making these points. That's the interesting thing, because I was watching the earlier seasons in preparation for watching this one. I just wanted to be fully immersed in it, and as I was watching the old stuff, I was like, I don't remember quite a lot of this, so I'm really glad that I decided to rewatch.
Maybe I need to rewatch, because I didn't have the time before re-seeing this one, but...
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth it. And then you get...
I love that show. I'd rewatch it any time.
So they've always been making these kind of points, and maybe they weren't as relevant back then as they are today, but it's almost like the writers saw something coming, or kind of had an idea of what was coming. Or maybe they were in a situation where, like Neptune, it's a very small contained area where all this stuff is just happening all the time. You know, maybe there's an awareness of that, but it's almost like this season is like, yeah, we told you, this is where it was going, we told you so. And it's always been like that in Neptune, but it's definitely the focus this season, and you'll find that thematically not a lot has changed in terms of the way they used to explore it in the old season. So it's really interesting how forward-thinking the show ended up becoming.
Yeah.
When I suppose at the time it might have been looked on as a very cynical outlook on the world.
Haha, look where we are now.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had a cynical outlook on the world, so it's probably why I've gravitated towards it so heavily.
Nice to be proved right.
Yeah, that's it. Well, in this case, not so much.
No.
Yeah, I'd rather be proven wrong, because being proven wrong means the world is a better place.
Just reflecting on the news is just like so depressing at the moment.
It's very depressing.
But yeah, anyway, Veronica Mars deals with all of that really, really well. And especially in the later episodes when there's that commentary on like the construction of the narrative tends to favour the perpetrator. Yeah. And that also sort of leans into, you know, the sort of serial killer obsession of like documentaries and immersing yourselves in sort of gory details that's become very trendy. I thought that was interesting also.
Yeah, they are actually just making a commentary on the true crime stuff, as in these people are idiots and shouldn't be doing this.
For sure.
And the murder heads are really good in the sense that they're just so clueless. They don't really know anything. And you've got Penn. There's a character I really liked, although I find it hard not to like Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, true. I know, right? That was such clever casting.
Yeah. Although it's distracting casting as well, because I'm aware that he's Patton Oswalt in a Veronica Mars show, and I'm like, I can't really see past that.
Fair enough,
It's
yeah.
the same with J.K. Simmons as well. Whenever he walks in, I'm like, "That's
Oh
J.K.
my god,
Simmons."
agreed.
Yeah.
I was excited to see him on screen. I was like, oh my god, I didn't know you were in this.
Well, I saw him in the trailer and I was like, I wonder how big a role he's going to have. Turns out, massive role.
Pretty big,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the thing about Penn is he sees himself as being like a peer to Veronica and Keith, where he isn't, because they actually solve crimes and he's just an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that makes the ending work so well is how much contempt they hold him in. You know, they don't think he's competent. They don't really favour his opinion. They just don't respect him in any way.
Yeah, which is good, especially when you find out, again, massive spoiler alert, when you find out he's the bomber. I think it's good that they withhold that respect and that validation of his actions, because even though he's successfully evaded them for a while and killed people, they refuse to see him as an actual, maybe not a threat, but basically they won't see him as like an intellectual equal. And
Yeah.
I find that very satisfying, because that's all he ever wanted, and that's what's driven his actions. And they withhold that, and that's the ultimate way that they can punish him, almost.
Yeah, and his confession was really interesting because it was more about how positive it was going to be for him. I'll be out of jail in however long, and I'll be famous, and
My documentary made about me.
yeah, where I'll star. I'm thinking Tara Reid for you, Veronica.
Yeah.
Just oh god, this is dark. It was kind of at that point. It was about episode 6, I think. I'd narrowed it down that the bomber can't be anyone but him. Because he's a new character, he's kicking about, he's been around for so long, and it won't be anybody we know, because there aren't actually that many people we know
No.
left, so unless it's like throw it out of left field and turn it into Wallace, that'd be...
Can you imagine?
I know. Well, there was that point where he was like, I am the bomber, and then he turns to Veronica, so you don't really believe that, do you? And she's just laughing, so...
Aye.
They even have that moment where it's like, it could be Wallace. They never will.
Yeah.
But it gets to a point where it's like, yeah, it can only be him. I mean, at first it was going to be either him or Clyde.
Yeah.
And I see what the writers were doing. They were trying to put you off the scent by making Penn just such an idiot. Or being so focused on solving the crime himself that it couldn't be him. But it became pretty clear that he was manipulating evidence, or he was ignoring evidence that they were finding. 'Cause he was
Yeah.
trying to make it seem trivial. It could be anybody delivering the pizza that night and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever. And to be honest, they had me when they started accusing one of the other murder heads. What was his name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he was in a show
Yeah.
called Greek. that guy.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was like, oh, okay, like, it's not Penn, it's him. And I was like, oh, that's a bit disappointing because we didn't get to know him that well. And then they did that, like, whole turnabout, and I was like, oh, you got me.
Yeah. The insulting, he looks like a hobbit thing.
Yeah, kind of sold you, didn't it?
Yeah, it could be, oh yeah, it's him. It could be
I
him.
mean, they all look like hobbits, but yeah.
I was quite impressed by the way they did it. And it was good having a mystery that didn't have a personal connection to Veronica as well.
Yeah, agreed.
That was a bit different.
I thought it worked really, really well, because it's always kind of like, especially when you remove so many of her friends and the people she used to know, I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't have her entire high school of willing suspects to interview at this point, or a college full of them, that kind of thing. You know,
Very true.
The playground's very different. So she's not trapped by any one location where these things just happen and she can speak to people all the time. She has to kind of go out of her way to question people now.
Yeah.
You know, she has to go across town or whatever. She isn't connected to a specific place. Which is good. It's a sign that the show is able to grow up and it's able to develop.
Yeah, and not stay stuck by its own sort of narrative barriers, which is great.
I don't know, I think Penn is a good commentary on, I guess, maybe the fans of the show a bit as well. You know, he's this kind of fan who's trying to solve the mystery along with Veronica and Keith, but isn't quite capable of it because because you're not Veronica or Keith. You don't understand how these things work. I think within the confines of the universe, though, you start to put clues together and you start to figure it out towards the end. I think I read somewhere that the best point of solving a mystery in a show that has a mystery is the audience should get it about half an hour before the characters do, because that makes you feel clever.
I guess that is quite a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have to have put the pieces together before the main character tells you, I've just figured it out.
Yeah.
And then explains it all to you.
Yeah.
It's almost the Scooby-Doo thing.
That's exactly the Scooby-Doo thing. Yeah.
It's like, I know who it is. And then you're just waiting for confirmation, and you're like, yes, I was right.
I'm so much clever.
Yeah, I'm cleverer than all these people. I'm going to go work at Mars Investigation because I know how to solve all these problems.
Oh, ain't that the dream?
I don't know. It seems like quite a dangerous line of work. I think I would rather stay away from that.
Yeah, but with like plot armor, it'd be quite solid.
Maybe, yeah. And what about Keith? I mean, the way he was changed for this one with his medical issues, I thought there was going to be something horrible happen to him.
Yeah, do you know what? When I was watching it and he received the good news that he actually wasn't unwell, I was like, oh my god, something terrible is going to happen now.
Yeah.
And it did. But yeah, no, I thought that was another really interesting way of seeing him aging and more thematically sort of seeing how Veronica dealt with the threat of losing one of her sort of most grounding forces, especially towards the later episodes when she comes to realize the extent of his memory loss.
Yeah. And obviously he's walking with a limp as the series begins because they really need to hammer home the fact that he's perhaps old and frail and past it. Is Keith Mars still relevant in this new Neptune? And the fact that he can't walk as quickly as he used to and doesn't have as much energy as he used to, and his memory's starting to fail him. I mean, it all turns out to just be a bad combination of medication, but which isn't a disappointing end to that story, because I like the fact that it turned out to be nothing, because I want Keith to stick around.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's almost like they just brush it aside.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, they bring up all these issues of him being like, oh, well, what if I'm getting too old? Am I putting other people at risk? Is this still what I want to be doing as I'm getting older, etc.? And you see his resolution sort of be tested, etc. And then he finds out he's fine, and all of a sudden, all those doubts just go away. And I was slightly disappointed. I thought they could have been given a little bit more time. Like, say he found out he was well and he was still thinking, you know, maybe it is still time to pack it in, you know, I've had a brush with death, maybe that's enough.
Yeah. And it's the final episode as well where, well, he's basically one day away from retirement, and you know what that means in fiction. And he's standing around with a bomb about to go off, and as I was watching that, it was racing through my head, it's like, this is it, he's gone. You know, Veronica's going to have to watch him explode before her very eyes. And although it's almost Joss Whedon in the way that they explore that, because Joss Whedon stuff, what you do is you build up someone so that you assume they might die because he spent so much time working on them. You know, it's Hawkeye in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
And then someone else dies. And that's the way they do it here. So when he's about to die, I mean, at that moment, I was caught in the moment. I was like, oh God, he's going to die. I can't watch this. I can't deal with it. And then he doesn't. And someone else does.
Yeah, I liked it though, because it didn't feel cheap. It made sense, and it was actually quite clever. It takes you on that sort of emotional roller coaster. Yeah,
and it was how casual he was to accept it as well. He was like, yeah, I might have dementia. I'd rather go out like this, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can wait. And then Penn just calls his bluff, or doesn't call his bluff, and tells him where the bomb is.
Yeah, I think that's one of the very few insights we get into Keith's own emotional trauma, because we spend a lot of time with the show's kids that are now adults in terms of how their past affects them. But you can tend to forget that Keith Mars has also gone through his fair share of horrible things. Yeah. And the fact that he was so open and casual about dying, if it meant him not having to suffer through losing his mind and losing himself. I thought that was one of the rare insights we got into his own mental state as well.
Yeah, and I liked his friendship with Clyde as well when they were playing with it. It was built on suspicion on both sides.
Yeah.
So Clyde was like, I know this guy. I'm clever enough to know this guy. He's going to be suspicious. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay little traps for him. And that's interesting in itself. And just the way that they're just two old guys who are very old-fashioned guys as well. They both believe that their word means something. And you get that when Clyde confronts Big Dick about the property he wanted. And it's like, no, you can have something else. It's fine. It doesn't matter. He's like, no, it does matter. It's the one I wanted. It's the one you promised me. And why am I not getting it? And Keith understands that. Keith understands I give you my word means something. Whereas people's word doesn't mean a lot in Neptune. So it's interesting to see how profoundly betrayed Keith felt when he found out Clyde's involvement in everything.
Yeah, and I like that parallel between Keith and Cliff's friendship and Nicole and Veronica's as well, and how the way they closed those friendships mirrored each other, as in Veronica opens up to Nicole about having planted that bug and she still wants to be friends, and Nicole closes that chapter and she's like, I can't be friends with you if this is the kind of relationship you're looking for. And then in parallel you have Cliff telling Keith, Clyde, sorry.
Cliff is another guy.
Cliff, no. Clyde telling Keith that we're two old guys in our 60s. It's very rare for us to meet someone who we enjoy spending time with. Like, let's just be friends. And Keith is like, no, I can't be friends with you. And is that very clever parallel, I think.
In that one, Clyde's the one at fault, and the other one, Veronica's very much the one at fault.
Also, all these guys have way too similar names, can I just say?
Yeah, the CL sound seems to come up a lot. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, the Veronica Nicole one is an interesting one because you don't see an awful lot of female friendships that Veronica has. She doesn't have a lot of friends in general, and least of all female ones. I mean, she had Meg in like season 1, and then the way Veronica behaved pushed that away.
Yeah.
At least to a point. And then Mac, who's always stuck by her, but Mac, much of a misfit as she is. So you can understand why they're such easy friends.
And they also bonded over their work together, rather than just a straight-up friendship, the way that Veronica and Nicole had at the start.
Yeah, I like that they just spent so much time on just showing Veronica and Nicole having fun as well.
I know, it was really wholesome, but like also not wholesome because you know everything that's sort of underlying that exchange.
Also, all the ecstasy.
Yeah, and that.
Yeah, that's not quite so wholesome. So I'm wondering, people have said this to me before, having never been in a female friendship, I have no idea, but people have said before with Felicity and Arrow that she's perhaps the type of woman that other women don't like. And I don't really know what that means, but I found it quite an interesting comment. So I'm wondering if Veronica is the same sort of person. Perhaps you can enlighten me.
I think it's less a gender thing of she's a hard person to be friends with. And you see it with Wallace as well. That's her oldest friend, and she still manages to not see him much. He's went on with his life, and he only appears in brief moments where she's playing nice at that house party and trying to fit in, and it all feels a little bit forced, and he'll always have her back, but that doesn't mean they're as compatible as they used to be. Yeah. And then you get her relationship with Weevil, which is just a hot mess, to be honest. I think it's less a thing of, like, she's not the kind of girl that girls want to be friends with. It's more she's a difficult person to have as a friend.
Wallace is an 09er now. That's a weird one.
Yeah, strange.
Because he's a teacher and his wife's a lawyer.
Yeah,
He's very much moved zip codes.
Totally. And you see that, I still find that house party welcome housewarming or whatever it was really funny in terms of the kinds of people that were there talking about their kids and preschools and that wee anecdote about, oh, I got my son into preschool because my baby is eligible.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the most bizarre conversation I've ever heard. I thought that was a nice wee glimpse into how the other half lives, but not the other half that's also scheming to kill everyone.
Yeah, not all rich people are bad. Just most of them.
No, they're just dull as fuck.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, it's like the most boring conversations. And you can sort of tell that Veronica wants to rip her own eyes out. And
oh yeah, totally.
She's like, oh my god, these people are so vapid, I can't deal with this.
And I think that sort of affects how close her friendship with Wallace is. The fact that that's his life now, and even though he doesn't buy into it completely, he buys into it enough that he feels comfortable in that setting in a way that she probably never will.
Yeah, and he still holds Veronica in high regard. You know,
Oh,
she's still,
absolutely, yeah.
she's still anti-Veronica to
Yeah.
the kid, and but Logan is much more at home in that environment than she is, which is quite telling, I think, as to where they both are in their lives and in their relationship.
Yeah, and where he comes from, like, don't forget, Logan, as a kid, was, like, a very, very well off, and he was always an 09er, so that might be more, like, harking back to how he was raised rather than his current state.
I mean, I suppose he got a lot of affection from his mother, but he still lived in a very hostile environment when he was growing up.
Yeah.
Because of his dad, you know, that striking image in season 1 where he said something publicly that he knew his dad wouldn't like, and he just knows to walk in and get a beating at the end
Oh
of it.
god, yeah. I think that was one of the first scenes where I realised just how dark that show was about to get. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like Logan's like, yeah, I know I'm going to get a beating for this, but I'm also still going to do it because defying him is much more important than avoiding a beating.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the kind of guy he is. He'll rush into danger even though he knows it won't end well for him.
Totally. I think that totally is in line with the sort of job and lifestyle he opts to adopt as an adult.
Yeah, having him in the armed forces is an interesting one. I would never have predicted that end point for the character.
No, me neither, but I think it works well in terms of him being in therapy and him being able to suppress his sort of more violent instincts. The sort of regiment of the army allows him to express his anger in a way that's more constructive.
Yeah, and then there's the suggestion that he's seen all these horrible things as well.
Yeah.
That he can't talk about, even to Veronica, because it's all like classified.
Yeah.
She doesn't probe him about it, because she probably doesn't want to know. The last thing she wants to be is emotionally supportive.
Yeah, I don't think she has much capacity for it, to be honest.
No, she's trying to remain as kind of blank as possible. But there's all this stuff that he needs to talk about, and I guess has to turn to a random stranger therapist to do that.
Yeah.
Because he can't get that from Veronica. Well, he doesn't expect it from her, and it doesn't tear their relationship apart because he understands what she's about.
Absolutely, yeah. And he knows better than to put stuff on her that she can't handle.
Yeah. Although he does get frustrated with the fact that she wants things from him that he's not willing to deliver anymore.
Yeah, that he's been working for so long to sort of improve about himself are the same things that she wants back from him. You could see how that would make someone feel inadequate.
Yeah. What was your take on the proposal thing and how it lingered over the series?
Okay, first of all, I didn't think the proposal was all that genuine in terms of... I have no doubt that they love each other, but I think Logan choosing to propose when he knew that Veronica didn't want to get married was sort of a way of pushing this sense that he wants to feel more normal than he used to, like the sense that he's working on himself and trying to build this life. I thought the proposal was more about him than it was about them as a couple. So I thought that was really interesting, first up. And then the way that it lingers over the season was, I thought, acted as kind of a lightning rod for Veronica's emotional development throughout the season. The way her changing attitudes and how she was worried about hurting his feelings and how she was angry and how she's almost tempted to cheat with Leo being brought back. I thought it was just a really effective way of concentrating that sort of narrative thread.
Yeah, and the Leo thing was interesting. Having him back was not something I would have expected, but I like that they instantly fell back into that kind of flirtatious relationship that they had all along. But it was also the fact that, okay, she may have been tempted to cheat in the sense that she had a very erotic dream about him, but at the same time, the first thought she had as soon as she woke up was to, accept Logan's proposal. Yeah. So I think that, relationships are more complicated than you might think. Certainly than TV would sometimes make you think, especially, it's not a CW show, but it used to be a CW show, so I'm going to take it. It's the idea that even thinking about straying is unforgivable. And I don't necessarily see it that way. I think at any point in a relationship, as I said earlier, things change, relationships change, and the idea is it's naive to think that you'll be in a committed relationship with someone and you will never look at anyone else. That's just naive. I don't think that human beings work. But it's the idea that when it comes down to being tested, Veronica sticks with Logan.
Yeah, she like chooses not to.
Yeah, even though she could have. And, well, she cheated on Leo in the first season with Logan. Which is not something I personally agree with. And I think it's a problem she had, and it's maybe a problem she will continue to have in terms of wanting to sabotage her relationships. So as soon as she feels herself getting close to Nicole, she plants the bug, and then that's her destroying that relationship. You know, she's saying, I don't trust you enough to take your word at face value. So she's always looking for an out kind of thing, one way or another. But the fact is, as soon as she kind of gives herself that out and then doesn't take it and kind of affirms her commitment to Logan, that says a lot about how deep that connection is and how it works.
For sure. Which just makes the end so much more painful.
Yeah. And I like their wedding scene because it wouldn't fit to have a lavish wedding attended by all their friends, all four of them. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was pretty much attended by all their friends.
Yeah. Oh.
The only one that was missing was Dick, but we'll get on to him.
Oh my god, yeah. No, I love that wedding reception bit. I thought it was very, very much appropriate for their characters and their relationship as a whole.
Yeah. And it's the bit where she gets the text from Logan. It's like, I'm sorry. And Wallace is like, where is he? I'm going to kick his ass. Where is he?
I know.
And it was like, oh no, I dictated it. Did I not send all of it?
It was such a silly, wee addition to the narrative, but it just fit so well. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. Because you see him talking to his shrink right before, and you're like, oh my god, he's having second doubts. I knew it.
Yeah.
And then how quickly Wallace was like, oh, that dickhead, like, I'm going to kick his ass. And Veronica's just like, oh my god, I can't believe this. And then he just comes running in like, oh, what's wrong?
Yeah.
What did I miss?
I said I'm sorry, I'm going to be a few minutes late. That's what the text was supposed to say.
Yeah, no. It was good. I really liked that bit.
Yeah. And then Veronica agrees that they'll have a lavish honeymoon. That's the give and take in the relationship, isn't it? So I don't want a big wedding, but we can have a sizable honeymoon. That's something I'm willing to do. And of course that won't happen, but yeah, that's the way it goes. Happiness isn't allowed.
No, especially not happy endings.
There was an interesting interview I read with Rob Thomas that I'll try and find for the show notes. He was talking about, this was in the context of iZombie, and he was talking about, in that show there's a relationship it's not exactly like the Logan-Veronica relationship, but it's off and on again almost as much, maybe even a little bit more. But it's the idea, he says, he doesn't know how to write stable relationships because he finds them boring. And if you look at the growth of the Logan-Veronica thing across the 4 seasons, they've never really spent that much time as a couple.
No.
And then when they do, they don't focus on it. I suppose they are just a couple and they don't really talk about it, which is more real than let's constantly, make moon eyes at each other and all this nonsense that you get in other places. But the interesting thing to bear in mind is once they're at the point of being in a couple, that's where he considers it boring and he can't write it all that well, which maybe his failing as a writer, but he's also not trying to do it. So you have them as a couple in this season, and they don't spend an awful lot of time together. I mean, they have dinner together and all that kind of stuff. And then he disappears for an episode or two where he's been called back into service. And most of Logan's scenes are him with other people, with the congressman or whatever, in most of his scenes. So how they get around that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think it also works to establish the fact that they've been together for so long that it's become very normalized and there's no point in focusing on it because it's just routine.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's very sort of seamless the way they handle that gap in the story where you lose track of the characters for a few years and you just pick it up like there's no exposition needed because it's just understood that this is where they are now and there's no need to explain it.
Yeah, and I wonder if the fact that Logan will disappear for weeks or months at a time whenever he is called into service is deliberate. Well, I mean, obviously it's deliberate, but in the terms of the way the relationship actually works, even though Veronica misses him when he's away, it's almost as if she needs him to be away sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And Logan kind of touches on that when he's like, oh, we're two lone wolves who need time apart to be good together.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the best summary of their relationship because they don't work. There's two such strong opposing alpha relationships that if they were constantly on top of each other, euphemism not intended, it wouldn't work the way it does in the long run. They need those little reunion honeymoon periods to sustain the relationship.
Yeah, and then they need to have separate lives when they are together as well.
Exactly, yeah.
And the way they managed to put Logan off to the side by having him part of the Maloof storyline was really good. Just having him as the bodyguard, and I really like the whole, they speak Arabic around me.
Oh my
they don't know
God,
I can understand Arabic. And then when he's leaving, when he reveals that he just answers the wife in Arabic, and everyone's like, oh crap.
It was so sassy, I loved it.
Yeah. What have we been saying around him?
And he's like, I'll try and keep in shape for next time. I love that. It's those little moments of like humor and lightheartedness that sort of like keep it from feeling too gritty at times.
Yeah, and you have that where people just underestimate Logan as well.
Yeah, always. And I think he's learnt to use it to his own advantage. Like the fact that very early on he was like, well, you know, I speak Arabic, but they're obviously never going to suspect that because, you know, I'm just another white boy to them.
Yeah.
I think he's learned, rather than being resentful of the fact that people think he's an idiot, he's learned to use it. Yeah.
And he's always been a really clever guy that tries to hide how clever he is.
For sure.
When, in the early seasons, when someone would try to leave a voicemail for him, and he'd be like, "You're through to Logan's voicemail. The inspirational quote of the day is this."
Yeah.
It's just it's the kind of stuff that he just thinks about and reflects on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to miss Logan.
Oh, I don't think I've processed it completely. I might need to go rewatch like the earlier season and the movie, just like say my goodbyes.
Yeah. His death, it was handled in such an understated way. The idea is the surprise of it happening. The fact that it doesn't occur to Veronica until the last second that that's what's happening. And the fact that it can happen because you underestimate Penn.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone they think he's an idiot, so we as the audience think he's an idiot. And then it was actually that moment of I kind of figured it out just before Veronica did as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, like when he leaves and she's like shouting after him because she hasn't realised that he's left the flat. Yeah. That's when the alarm bells started going. I was like, that ain't right. We're too close to the end of this episode. But yeah, I thought it was done so well. I thought it was quite respectful to the legacy of that character to have it happen off screen, that there's no like exploitation element for shock factor of his death.
Yeah. I don't know what their censorship limits were on Hulu, but yeah, it would have been pretty grim just to see him explode.
Yeah, but even if we just saw the car itself explode as he's getting into it, there wouldn't necessarily have been gore, so it's not like the censorship of the visuals. It's more like being respectful to the character, that you get to see him smiling at her and that's the last image you're going to have, not of him in a car exploding.
Yeah. And it's from Veronica's perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you see how she reacts to it, her immediate reaction to once she realises what's about to happen.
Yeah.
It's the one line from Penn that doesn't resonate until a little bit later, where he says, "If you're still around."
Yeah.
And then they make a point of, here's my like stakeout survival bag or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget about that. And then it was literally 30 seconds before Veronica figured it out. I was like, wait, no, I know what's happening here.
Yeah.
The bag is still in the car.
So horrible, yeah.
And I guess they forgot about the bag because they didn't consider Penn to be much of a threat as well. So.
Well, no, also he was so casual about like, oh, this is my stakeout kit. It's got like a pee funnel in it. Like, no one's going to open that bag and check that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to see your stinking pee funnel. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then the 10-year time jump. It's jarring, but it's supposed to be, I think. I think you're supposed to be a bit taken aback by it. But, not 10 years, 1 year.
I was about to say, like, what?
iZombie has a 10-year time jump. I was
really?
a bit confused. Yeah.
Yeah, the 1 year time jump I thought was also really good because then we've seen enough of Veronica grieving and at her worst throughout the seasons, and it was nice to get an alternative look at she's making an active effort to try and heal, which kind of gives you hope for the future as well, rather than the way she usually handles with grief, which is turn to the enemy and to solving and to bringing people to justice and sort of bury herself in her work. The fact that he was already in custody defo helped with that.
Yeah, it means that she has nowhere to turn her revenge on.
Exactly.
She can't find out who did it because she already knows who did it.
Yeah, she just can't run from her feelings anymore, which is...
Well, I suppose she kind of is. She's leaving town for a case, which...
Yeah, but I don't know if that's running away from her feelings or if that's actually accepting that finally, you know, like, Neptune's not ever going to be a healthy place for her to be. And there's that very sort of closing that chapter vibe about how she's leaving her dad. She's sure that her dad's, like, healthy. It's mentioned that he has a girlfriend, so he's got that companionship. And you've got oh my god, I'm totally blanking on the girl's name. Maddie, yeah. She's sort of a replacement Veronica almost, and Maddie and Keith can be supporting each other. And since she doesn't need to be there for Logan anymore, she's free to be selfish about it for once and just look after herself.
What about Pony, though?
Pony! She could have taken him, to be honest, but...
I think the ending's deliberately ambiguous, because I took it that she was going to be away for a while and then would come back. Once she sorted things out a bit, and I suppose leaving the dog behind is that indication that no, I plan to come back.
Yeah,
if I have that connection to the dog, that's the only part of Logan I have left, that kind of thing.
True, yeah.
So I guess it's ambiguous as to whether maybe there's another series, and if there is another series, she'll come back. And if there isn't another series, she won't. Or it's up to us what she does next.
Yeah, I do like it. I think as endings go, be it like a permanent ending or not, I thought it was very well done.
It was, definitely well done. And she opens up to the therapist a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not too much.
No.
She is still Veronica Mars, but
exactly.
She's starting to maybe contextualise things a little bit.
For sure.
Deliberately don't see Keith's new girlfriend.
No. I wonder who it is.
We might want to cast someone semi-famous if we get another series.
Yeah.
We'll find some other middle-aged actor that can keep pace with him.
That'll be a challenge, but yeah, hopefully.
Well, they've done quite well in the past.
Yeah, it's just like Keith is so well loved that they'll have to really step up their game if they're going to find someone who can portray a girlfriend that's worthy of him.
What did you think of Matty since we touched on her?
Do you know what? At first, I wasn't too fond of that whole storyline in the season with Matty and her trying to be Veronica Mars 2.0. But then I came to appreciate the cyclic nature. You know, Veronica's able to look at this younger version of herself and sort of be a mentor for her. I thought that worked well. Yeah,
I liked her a lot. I think the actress that plays her is amazing as well.
Do you want to know a fun tidbit? Which, sure. I don't know, you might already know this, but you know she's Charlotte in season 1 of The 100. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, the young girl that kills people.
Exactly.
Yeah. She was also in Supergirl as a young version of Kara in a few episodes.
She's doing well for herself.
Yeah, she was in iZombie in an extended role, which is probably why she's in this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because she was casting that, and Rob Thomas was like, wow, let's hang on to this.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for her. She's getting all the big hitters.
But she's really good in this. Very much the young Veronica vibe is running strong.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that Veronica sees a lot of herself in her and wants to help her out of that, help her not become like her. Mm-hmm. And I suppose it's the closest thing you'll ever get to Veronica raising a kid. Yeah. Because having a kind of fully formed teenage kid is probably best for her rather than raising a child of her own.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, how many times do they say over the season, don't have kids? And yeah, she shouldn't. She shouldn't have kids.
No, that'd be a bad idea.
It would be very, very bad for her to do that. I don't think that she'd be a good parent at all. Mm-mm. But as a mentor, she's much better. Because she's able to kind of intervene with someone's life who's a bit more self-sufficient, a bit more not set in her ways, but has a bit of a personality, but still has potential to be fixed to some degree.
She's able to empathise in a way that she can't with others in the show, which makes for an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and then putting her in the reception at the end.
Yeah,
in that place.
Oh, so poetic.
Yeah. I guess if they ever reboot the show or decide to do like a spin-off, it could be about her. That'd be really good.
Maybe, yeah.
It might not be that good, but who knows?
Depends how it's done, innit?
Yeah, as with everything.
Exactly.
But I liked her a lot. I think that she bounced off Kristen Bell really well. I think she felt like part of the cast.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that she wasn't just this little naive, damaged victim. She had such determined and kind of dark streak to her, which you see especially when she witnesses Big Dick's murder. You see that sort of smile flash across her face that she's satisfied with the outcome. It's really dark and reveals this more complicated core to her that's allowed her to survive through the events that she survived.
Yeah, and she has a connection to Penn that's unique.
Yeah,
as well.
sure.
Because she kind of likes him because he delivered pizza.
Yeah, they were friends.
Yeah, but she also acknowledges that he's a bit of an idiot as well. So her link to that is as valid as anything else.
Yeah.
You know, and it already feels like she has a history before she appears as well.
Yeah,
it's kind of rare. Because sometimes they'll introduce characters and they'll be like, I have no sense that you existed before this episode. But no, she definitely did. I think the motel thing, it's well established. This is how it has worked. We've built up these connections with like this local business and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The whole vending machine thing, I didn't recognise the vending machine guy.
Yeah.
It was a clever one.
That was very clever. And that's the first time you kind of, I see a bit of Veronica in her.
Yeah. It's a good way of bringing in the Fitzpatricks as well.
For sure.
Which again, fan service, but not empty fan service. And the fact that the last time Veronica had to deal with, I think it was the first time she had to deal with him, he pulled a gun on her, but this time she pulls a gun on him.
Yeah.
It's that kind of, got you back, finally.
Yeah. Speaking of empty fan service, what did you think of having Dick Jr. and Vinny show back up?
I'm always a big fan of Vinny.
Yeah.
I think it's always hilarious when he shows up, because the guy is just so incompetent, weirdly just manages to solve the case by stumbling onto things or just being unethical.
And he's still got that sassiness that makes him quite compelling.
Yeah, and it's when he gets paid a lot of money to investigate something, and he's like, I'll do it, it's fine. No morals here. Dick, I think Dick's a mainstay.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever get rid of him. And they use him as little as they need to. I think it's good that Logan still has that friend.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's just a film star now is really funny.
And like a sort of B-list film star, which I think is very appropriate.
Because when you first see him and they don't reveal that it's a film right away, and it's like, I want the drugs, and then, and then what's his name? Josh Duham. I can't pronounce his name. When he shows up, I'm like, there's something sus about this.
That was such a sort of like wink wink to the audience.
Yeah. And then he's hitting on that underage girl. And Clyde's like, you look a lot like my niece. She was born in this year. What year were you born? And it's like, I just stopped you committing statutory rape. You're welcome.
Which was also a really great way of introducing him as well. But the first couple episodes were really well done in terms of re-establishing where we're at, who's there, and where we're going.
And there was a couple of hilarious bits about Dick that I thought were really funny. And where he texts Logan, bring pants, it's Dick. And he doesn't need to sign it off as being Dick. I know that any text that starts with bring pants is from Dick. And it's the other bit where he's talking about the Hallmark Christmas movie that he's in. And I play her jealous ex, who's also a mannequin. And it's like, and Veronica says, I'm sorry, she fell in love with two mannequins.
Maybe that was just another Blade Runner reboot that we're not privy to.
Yeah. And I think there was another bit where he says, you know what they say about small packages? And Veronica says that you've got one. So it's
that sort of old school, like, bantering and jesting that's sort of harking back to the earlier seasons, which I find really, really pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, Dick is no longer a threat in Veronica's life. He used to be, but not anymore, so she can just have fun with him. And I think there's some growth for him as well. There's a bit where Veronica phones Logan and he's about to just ignore it. And Dick makes him answer the call.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's some growth there. And then he admits that he appreciates everything she does because he played a detective. You don't really, but, it's a nice sentiment.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Yeah, that is funny.
I used to hate the guy, but I actually quite like him now.
You were meant to hate him, though. It served the narrative, and now that he's no longer sort of relevant, it's just enjoyable enough to have him on the screen.
It's really weird how little time he spends with his dad, though.
Yeah, true. But then his dad was never much of a dad either.
Yeah.
So
Because there's that one scene at the country club or the golf course or wherever it is.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the only one I remember. There might have been others.
No, I think you're right. Because also he kind of just drops off after the... I might be wrong about this, but I feel like we don't see him after the beach bombing.
I think you see him maybe once more after that.
Okay. Must not have left much of an impact.
Yeah, because there's some party after the second bombing.
Okay.
I think that's the bring pants party.
Yeah, actually, you're totally right, because he's like, oh, I just survived a bomb, like, I'm allowed to party. No, you're totally right.
Yeah, and then even Veronica's up for that. Which is funny. That's where she gets, like, really drunk and gets hungover the next day. And Keith makes fun of her for it.
Yeah. Aww.
As he does.
God, I love their relationship.
Yeah. Weevil being about was a bit of a weird one.
They did manage to work that into making sense for the story, even though they weren't overly focused on the gang's role in mugging the spring breakers, etc.
Yeah. I remember the end of the film. So at the end of the film, you see him on his bike, heading up the PCHers again. And it's after you find out that he's kind of settled down with his wife and kid.
Yeah.
And obviously he gets shot by Celeste Kane in that film, and it's not his fault. And that's kind of what leads him back into that life of crime. And his wife leaves him, and he's not allowed to see his kid. And I'm like, oh, Weevil, you were doing so well. And is this Veronica's fault that he's in that place? Maybe kind of. I think there's three main arguments that they have. And each of them is worse than the last. Each of them destroys a friendship a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you've got the whole bit about, I was shot by a white woman and now I'm like this. And she's like, yeah, I had your back on that. You could have sorted that and you chose not to. And it's just really destructive.
Yeah.
And I always wanted Weevil to turn out in a good place because he's very likeable. It's clear that he's above, or should be above, the kind of life of crime he's always been forced into because of his station in life.
But at the same time, I don't think his life choices are condemned per se in this season, because even though he's associated with criminal activity, all he's really doing is providing work for his people, for his family, providing a source of income in a way that at the end of the day doesn't harm anyone, because he's mugging spring breakers. You're not hurting them, you're just stealing like rich kids' money when they're drunk and out and about. It's in the sort of narrative context of what's happening in Neptune, it's very low on the sort of harmful criminal activity bar.
It's kind of mentioned by the police chief, but she doesn't care about it.
No. And really all it is him trying to survive in this new gentrified context, where it's one thing being morally high and mighty and being all crime is bad, and it's another for him and his family being faced with the reality of economic deprivation and the lack of work and the sort of effects of increased costs and the town getting completely overrun by resorts and such. And I think that's the fundamental difference between him and Veronica, is that Veronica doesn't have to be faced with that because she is fairly well off comparatively.
Yeah.
She has the economic capability of looking at it from a purely moral perspective, whereas he's actually faced with the necessity of day-to-day survival. And that's fundamentally the difference. But then at the end of the day, they still have each other's back. Like when he comes to the rescue when she's in the cottage being shot up, the respect still exists there, even if their perspectives aren't reconcilable.
And you mentioned about Veronica being reasonably well off. It's interesting how she just teeters on the edge of that middle class, though. You know, as soon as things become worse, she can no longer afford a place to live.
Yeah, exactly.
Just as soon as Logan dies, that's that gone. She can't afford that anymore. And then obviously the developers are coming in and they're turning it into like $10 million properties on the seafront, and it just pushes everybody out and makes the rich richer and the poor poorer, as everything else does in this world these days.
Yeah.
And then her and Keith can't afford to give him the medical help that he needs.
Yeah.
Even early on, even when they are still making decent money out of their cases and things, they still can't afford that.
Yeah. The only reason they can afford it is this one-off, like, big payment for catching the bomber because there was a reward on his head.
Yeah.
And that's sort of very temporary. I'm guessing with the American health system, was it 25,000 that
Something
they got?
like that, yeah.
That probably just barely covers hip surgery, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, they probably did not have much remaining afterwards. So it was sort of a one-off that wasn't going to fundamentally affect their economic standing.
Yeah. And then it was when Clyde offered, yeah, you go there, it's on Big Dick's dime, you don't have to worry about it. It's free. And then he's like, I can't accept that because they're corrupt. And Veronica's like, nope, you're offered that medical care, you take it. I know you can't be bought. It's more important that you're healthy than we have some kind of moral righteousness.
Totally. Yeah, which is interesting because that's sort of where Weevil's coming from, but she doesn't seem to see that she's being hypocritical by condemning him for doing essentially what she's encouraging her dad to do.
Yeah.
It's like turn the other way because you need something that you're not able to provide for yourself.
Yeah, and that's part of how flawed she is. Sometimes she can't see outside of her own bubble.
Totally.
And flawed characters are always better characters than not flawed characters.
100%.
Yeah, and Veronica's about as flawed as it gets. And it'll never change.
Excellent character, truly. And this season just added more layers to her. They didn't just cheaply try to pick up Veronica as she was and thrust her into an adult setting. They really tried and developed her character to be an adult character.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked to keep her as she was.
No.
And this season's story wouldn't have worked if they'd gone with the old traditional season numbering. Set across, a month? Something like that?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so 8 episodes to cover that. Perfect.
Yeah.
Imagine 22 episodes of Spring Break. Horrific.
Usually I'm greedy and I like loads of episodes when I'm getting a show that I really crave, but I thought 8 episodes of 50 minutes was just perfect.
Yeah, it's weird because when I watch a show, especially if I binge it like I did this, I'll sometimes at the end of it feel like I could have done with like a couple less episodes. Or I'll be like, well, maybe they could have done a bit more. But I actually felt like this was almost perfectly contained. I think the 8 episodes was nice. I don't feel like there was anything rushed. I don't think there was anything that was left out particularly. I don't think they needed to add anything extra.
No.
So, yeah, they just found a format that really worked for this particular story. And I think they must have got told how many episodes they were getting. And it's like, okay, let's frame a narrative around those 8 episodes.
There's definitely probably more flexibility with it having all released in one go on a streaming platform in terms of how much they could ask for, since it wasn't streaming one each week and they didn't have to sort of cater to the programming.
And I liked the couple of digs they had at Amazon as well. They had Alexa, who's the bomber? So I don't have one of those.
That's so funny. Yeah, no. I mean, the pop culture references were always very good with that show.
When they were going to sit and watch Hulu a couple of times.
And you actually see like glimpses of what shows are available as they're scrolling. I was like, oh my god, that's such a Netflix move.
Yeah, I don't know if they're real shows or not, probably.
No clue. But yeah, no, it was nice. And it didn't feel, it was kind of mocking itself, so it didn't feel like you were having advertising thrown at your face.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, in Veronica Mars, you've got, even in the early seasons, you're always looking at computer screens and things like that. You know, they always show these things. Most shows get it wrong, or they'll just invent an interface that works for their particular story. Whereas Veronica Mars doesn't. They use the real stuff. They've always apparently got it accurate. This was told to me by someone that happens to watch the show and is quite a techie sort of a person, so they understand how these things work, and they're always laughing at how shows portray technology and how they portray like things that work. Yeah, you plug a USB drive into a computer and it suddenly pops up with all this stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's not how it works. But in Veronica Mars, they always get it right.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if they've made a concerted effort to make the displays look accurate.
That's interesting, because it's not usually something I appreciate, because I'm not all that well versed in that tech aspect.
Yeah, but you'll recognise Windows and you'll recognise how the video files work, or even Skype. Skype was accurate. How many times have you seen Skype used in a TV show? That's not how Skype works.
Yeah,
I mean, the only thing that didn't put in was just a dodgy connection, which Skype always has.
True. Yeah.
I think we've covered more or less everything.
Oh, that's kind of sad. I was enjoying chatting about it. But yeah, no, you're right. Maybe we need to take a page out of her book and know when to stop. To be honest, how rare is it that a season is just so perfectly timed? There wasn't any point where I was like, oh, I wish they'd spent more time on this, or been like, oh, they'd really dragged that bit on.
Yeah, I didn't have many issues with it.
No.
It was the odd thing. The only thing I had issues with are the two, I've got to note their names, that's how much I forgot of them. I had to look them up. So you've got Alonzo and Dodie.
Oh, yeah.
They always felt like they were in a different show.
Yeah, but it was kind of funny. It was kind of like we were living with them and they were sort of giving us an outsider's perspective of how ridiculous the situation in Neptune is.
Yeah.
Like, I like the bit where they're sat in that cafe and they're like, oh, I could get used to this. This is how the other half lives, etc. And then you get the mayor, like, running naked past the window and they just look at each other like, oh, what?
I got a bit of a Breaking Bad vibe from them, actually.
Maybe they'll get their own spin-off show.
God, yeah. I mean, having them be the guys to kill Big Dick, that was something, I suppose.
I think there was sort of a poetic justice to the fact that they were Latino men from the other side of the American border. There's that sort of commentary of them coming and killing the big, corrupt white guy. I thought that was quite nice in a very politically, contemporarily satisfying way.
Yeah, I think conceptually they were fine, but in execution, I think it was a bit off kilter, I suppose. I don't think
I agree, yeah.
They achieved what they really needed to achieve.
Mm.
They even found time for clues that don't go anywhere, which sometimes in mystery shows you don't really get.
No, because I like the sort of like trial and error aspect to it, which is more realistic. Because
you had the bit where it turns out in every bombing so far, a sex offender has been killed. Maybe that's a connection. It's like, nah, it's not. Neptune's just falling down with sex offenders. You can't throw a stone without hitting one.
Sad, but true.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. Well, I mean, one of the first things that ever happened in the show was a rape. So that's the world we live in. That's
definitely
the world
set
they
the
live
tone,
in.
didn't it?
Yeah, really did. Just really did. So was there anything else that you kind of wanted to cover that we didn't cover?
Not that I can think of. I'll probably wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I forgot to talk about this. But right now I can't think of anything. Yeah. Feels like we've covered
all answers are correct at time of recording.
Yes, exactly.
So I suppose as a finish off, how do you think the show should continue? If we get a season 5 in about 5 years' time, just say, what would you like the form of that season to take? Where would you like it to pick up?
I don't think I want it to be in Neptune anymore, to be honest, just for Veronica's own development. Yeah. But I do want to keep the aspect of her being a PI, so I could see her, maybe her dad's gotten married to his new girlfriend and is retired or has taken up a job that's more of a desk chill job, and he's actually like happy with his lot, and she's maybe opened up her own little PI office that's relatively successful in another place, not too far away, that she can still see her dad but not too close, that she feels restrained and stuck and haunted by her past. Maybe at this point Mattie's gone to college and she's freelancing for Veronica, something like that.
Fair enough.
I think they have started the sort of like detachment process between Veronica and Neptune. You've lost a lot of the recurring characters and Logan's now out of the picture, so I think it might be time for her to move on.
Yeah, the implication of the ending is this place isn't really for me anymore. It's pushed me out like it has everyone else. Even Keith is comfortable now. Yeah. He has his girlfriend, the business is going okay. The last shot you see of Keith is him happy. Yeah, he's in his house, his hip's better. Yeah. I mean, he's rolling his eyes at the casting in that documentary. Yeah. But still, he's happy, he's content. His life is going quite well. Veronica, maybe not so much. She's struggling a little bit, but taking it out of Neptune... See, I'm not sure the Veronica Mars character can really exist without Neptune. And I think that's what this season's largely about as well. Is that codependent relationship sustainable, and is it valid? And is it what keeps us watching, ultimately? Because part of it is Veronica in Neptune, because Neptune's such an interesting place. Is it still the same thing if it's in, I don't know, New York or wherever? You know, you have to build this kind of community around her all over again, which maybe doesn't necessarily work because she's always been part of that community in one way or another, or separate from that community. But it's always been that relationship she has with the place that she is. So I could see her coming back. I mean, I'm not sure how it works because she would functionally be on her own next season.
Yeah.
If it was set in Neptune, because Wallace can't really team up with her. Anymore. That's part of what it is. You could get Mac back, I suppose, but still no idea why the actor didn't sign up for this season.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they touch on her absence being a big deal because she needs some techie stuff done and it takes ages because...
And then they just find someone in school.
Yeah, they even danced around the whole Matty could be her tech girl now. It's like, how are your hacking skills? Like, non-existent. That answers that. She's not here to fill that role, just by because sometimes you see that they transparently introduce someone that can just replace someone that's not there anymore, and then
like functionally they're the same person.
Yeah, it's like nope, Matty's not as simple as that. It's fine. I think maybe a further season could concentrate on that relationship.
Yeah,
with her and Matty and her training her up as a junior detective sort of thing. I don't know. I'm not sure there is a life for it beyond this, considering how much has changed.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, selfishly, I want to see more, but maybe it is an appropriate ending.
No, that's literally what I was about to say. Yeah, ain't that always the case?
Yeah.
And then 5 years from now, we might be like, oh, finally it's here. And then we're like, oh, they should have stopped it back then. It was so much better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's not good. Oh, they killed Keith finally. After 5 seasons of teasing us, they finally killed him, and it was horrible. Yeah, no. I think Keith should die, like, as an old man.
Yeah, he deserves a sort of like peaceful end.
Of natural causes, but...
Aye.
I suppose you had Jake Kane reintroduced in the last episode.
Yeah.
And you've got the idea of the Kane High School.
Yeah.
That's a world to play with. So I suppose that might be like if Matty ever gets a spin-off, she's like junior detective at this Kane High School, and then you've got the whole Kane situation kicking about again. I mean, there's no more Eccles to play with. They're all dead.
Yeah.
Apart from his sister. Don't know
True, where'd she go?
Yeah. She could come back, why not? What's Alison Hannigan doing these days?
Maybe.
Nothing, apparently.
Well, no, because How I Met Your Mother's done now, so she's pretty much free.
Yeah, unless she's, got other stuff on that we don't know about.
No.
Maybe I don't want another season. Maybe I'll just talk myself out of it.
If we were to have something else, maybe a film would be better suited.
Maybe, as a finale.
Yeah.
Have a film where, okay, this is what Veronica's life's going to be after all this. I don't know.
Something to think about.
Something to think about, yeah.
Let us know in the comments. XOXO.
Yeah, and we'll be back for more Veronica Mars, should there ever be any.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to end on? Any kind of final statements that you want to make about this season, Veronica Mars in general? Anything?
Veronica Mars is great, and that's my concluding statement.
Fair enough. I am forced to agree. I think it's pretty amazing, and I'm so glad it got brought back. And sometimes revivals are like, no, I was happy with the way it ended before, actually. I don't need to see any more. But in this, like, no, you've done the right thing.
This is like a masterclass in how to revive a show.
Oh, completely.
This is it.
Yeah. It's the right balance of familiar yet new.
Exactly.
The thing is, like, you could be bogged down by familiarity. I think the newness is much better. And it definitely feels like an evolution of this real person that they've crafted.
Oh, yeah.
In previous seasons. And, yeah, it lets her grow up, but also not. So, it's really good. I was 100%. So glad they made this, and I can't wait to... Well, maybe I can wait to see more. But I don't know. I might watch it again. I'll resolve it that. I will watch it again.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but definitely rewatch the old stuff, and you'll make the connection of, oh my god, the themes are the same. It's just they're more relevant now than they were back then.
Maybe that's why they didn't leave such a lasting impact. I saw them too much as like part of the story and less a reflection of the real world. Yeah,
you didn't live in that world at that time, so
no.
Yeah, so you didn't see it. Interesting. Well, thank you for joining for another podcast and enabling me to talk about another one of my favourite shows that no one watches.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme with us, isn't it?
Yeah. What other shows have we got that no one else watches?
Yet to be uncovered, but I'm sure they're there. Uncovered.
Yeah, they'll be there in future podcasts. We shall see.
definitely.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being a presence.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me back.
And I'm going to go and, I don't know, solve a mystery. That's what I'm
Nice.
going to do.
Don't get blown up.
So, that was our discussion of Veronica Mars Season 4. A special thanks to YouTuber Marlook_Hart for her rendition of the Veronica Mars theme song. We used to be friends by the Dandy Warhols. And YouTubers Skip and Terri for their version of the same song. If you like what you heard, then hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or any major podcasting app. If you want to talk Veronica Mars or anything else, then you can find us on Facebook or Twitter under Kneel Before Blog, or leave a comment on kneelbeforeblog.co.uk. As always, you can find us right here on the next Kneel Before Pod.
Something I said, or someone I know, or you called me up, maybe I wasn't home. Now everybody needs some time, and everyone knows